Definitely, yeah. So I think it's a double-edged sword. Fantasy romance is a double-edged sword. In this society we live in, you need it.
Yes.
Because precisely, no one is going to a marriage because of duty for you. Nobody's arranging marriage for anybody, for the most part. It still happens in some part of the world, but
it does. And some of those arranged marriages too fail.
Oh, by the way,
you just don't hear
the
about
arranged
it.
marriages that no one wants to talk about, they end up in divorce too.
They do.
All right. So why? Because we're enlightened. It's just what it is. We're enlightened. We'll see bullshit.
The more we know.
We don't want to accept bullshit.
Yes. The more we know, the more we want to fight for our rights. You know what I say about people who have too much rights? You don't appreciate what you have. You don't have a gratitude spirit. The people that don't have rights actually enjoy the little they have more than people like us. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's double-edged sword. Happily ever after is a fantasy, absolutely. But it's okay to feel that. Okay, I don't see anything wrong with that. All right, welcome back. Is happily ever after BS or real in marriage? Is losing interest normal?
Yes.
I want to get yours. Let me read this quick quote. Happily ever after is a fairy tale term. It generally refers to the end of the story where everything is resolved.
Right.
So if marriage is a journey, this is already a fallacy.
It is a fantasy.
Yep, a fantasy. Of course.
is.
The prince and princess live happily together forever after. That's usually the end of a movie.
I did believe in this. I'm sorry. I'm one of those.
This is our problems. Unrealistic expectations.
I did believe in this too.
All right. But I promise, the end of this video is going to be sweet. I promise. I don't want to destroy your dreams, okay?
Some of us like fantasies. Okay.
Some of us thrive on fantasies. The term happily ever after is common in many children's stories like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty. You know that?
Yes, babe.
Snow White.
Snow White.
And the Frog Prince. And of course the Aladdin. I've never seen these movies, but I've seen the Aladdin thing.
Because you don't watch cartoon.
Really?
I mean, this is so strange to me. You don't like cartoons.
No wonder the whole world is destroyed. It's Hollywood's fault.
It's all those fantasies.
It's Hollywood's fault. But I promise we're going to get through this together. Okay? So, is happily ever after BS or real in marriage? Is this bullshit or real? What's your answer to that, babe?
Well,
speak from experience.
Happily ever after, I would tell you, is a fantasy. And it doesn't mean that you can't be happy in a marriage. It doesn't mean that you can't have your own happily
version
ever.
of happily ever after.
Exactly.
Okay.
Is losing interest normal? Yes, occasionally, because there are moments where you're in love with your spouse, and there are moments that you can't stand them. You feel like you don't love them
That's
right
not
now.
me. That's usually her, but
You feel like you don't love them right now because they're acting out.
Right.
That is real.
Yeah.
You know, you feel like, what the hell is wrong with this person? I can't stand him right now. It's so annoying. Those are the moments. Okay, but they're like quick moments. They're not supposed to last for a long time.
Yeah.
If you understand that these moments exist. But the problem is, most of us people who love fantasies, that dwell in this fantasy world, we drag it.
Is that most women?
I would say yes, because women, the way we think is different from men.
They call it hopeless romantic.
Yeah, we're hopeless romantic. We drag it beyond, and there's some men that are hopeless romantic, by the way.
Of course.
Lover boys.
Especially Nigerian boys.
We drag it beyond that moment, and then we dwell in that miserable, and then we add it all the time. So you have this big, they call it cooler in Nigeria. Yeah, you have this cooler where you're putting the ear, that person's suffering, you're putting it there, combining it there and putting it on the side for them. That's the problem, and then it becomes is happily ever after BS. It doesn't have to be a BS.
I mean, we have, let's be frank, let's put some numbers on it. 50% of marriages around the world and in the Western world or any westernized society is ending up in divorce.
Yes, so
that doesn't help matters, right?
Because the more you know, the more you're likely to even destroy your marriage.
Exactly.
Because you know too much now.
Because now people are saying, like including women, I think it's a good thing that women have the fantasy. I think
Yeah.
it's a
Oh,
good.
I still
think.
have fantasies.
Okay, let me take that back.
I
I think
do
I think
agree
it's
with
both a
fantasies.
good and a bad thing. I think it's a
Right.
double-edged sword.
It is a
Right.
double-edged sword.
What we call romance is precisely that. People are fantasizing about something that doesn't exist. Okay, that's how we got here, right? We're 15 years in now, almost,
Right.
right? And that's how we got
After
here.
stumbling, you know,
Yeah.
we got our balance back.
Well, I'm saying the source of this is the romance, the fantasy. If we never felt the romance and the fantasy, we wouldn't be here, right? We didn't do the duty thing. We didn't do arranged marriage.
Well, the duty cannot work for me. I hate anything
I mean,
when it's
you
called
do
duty.
have duties now.
I do have duty, but
And
when
that's-
it has to be spelled out to me like I'm being controlled,
When it has to be made known to you that
some kind
there's
of
no
pressure,
fantasy.
I'm like, what the hell am I in?
When you have to be unplugged from your fantasy.
Yes, and tell me that I'm in some kind of slavery or bondage, like you said.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like fun. I'm
did,
sorry.
I did say the bondage, the bondage word.
The B word.
Yeah.
Like, wait, not the bondage.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think it's a double-edged sword. Fantasy romance is a double-edged sword. In this society we live in, you need it
Yes.
because precisely, no one is going to a marriage because of duty for you. Nobody's arranging marriage for anybody, for the most part. It still happens in some part of the world, but
It does.
for
And
the-
some
for
of
the
those
most part.
arranged marriage too fail.
Oh, by the way,
You just don't
the
hear about
arranged
it.
marriages that no one wants to talk about, they end up in divorce too.
They
okay?
do.
All right. So, why? Because we're enlightened. It's just what it is. We're enlightened. We see bullshit.
more we know.
don't want to accept bullshit.
Yes, the
Right.
more we know, the more we want to fight for our rights. You know what I say about people who have too much rights? You don't appreciate what you have. You don't have a gratitude spirit. The people that don't have rights actually enjoy the little they have more
Right.
than people like us.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's double-edged sword. Happily ever after is a fantasy, absolutely. But it's okay to feel that. Okay, I don't see anything wrong with that. There's people actively preaching that you shouldn't feel happily ever after. That marriages are terrible. They don't. Say, I'm paraphrasing. They don't say it exactly like that, but they might as well just say it.
Yeah, that's what the tone carries.
And that's not the truth. My wife and I can go 6 months, no single argument.
yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
you don't hear that because the ones that are arguing end up on the internet for the most part with their issues, right? And they don't want to tell them most of the stories. But the truth is that there is skill set, but what we teach starts with romance. It starts with the happily ever after fantasy. But we also teach to learn how to mitigate the other side of it, which is at some point 2 years or 2 years or less, that's going to fall apart.
Right.
You're going to see the end of that story, and it's not going to be happily ever after. And how do
Happily
you
never after.
how do you get through those 2 years and not end up in divorce? Because what happens for people is that they fall out of love within 2 years or less, and then they keep trying to patch things, and then 5 years or less they divorce.
try.
50% of it divorced. But that last 2 years was actually massive suffering.
Yes, people go through suffering before they actually go to the
Right.
divorce court, you know?
But a certain percentage, they figure it out, they get out on the other side, and they enjoy the fruit
Of their labor.
of that process. Like going to school, that first 5 years, like you're in school, it's a learning platform. You're not going to learn anything before marriage. You're going to learn everything inside of marriage.
Yes.
That's a fact of life. After 5 years, you get outside, you start harvesting that fruit of all that labor, you know. And to someone like me and her, yes, happily and ever after is a real thing. At least for me. Let me not speak for her yet.
I
Right?
agree.
You see what I'm saying? So is losing interest normal? That's the 2 year stuff I just said. It's not gonna happen once. It's gonna happen multiple times. It's gonna happen, but that's the growing pain.
It's
You're
the growing
learning yourself first. You don't even know yourself, and then you're learning another human being.
Yes.
There's no way you could possibly, just like the scripture says, two is better than one. You know,
Always.
two is better than one. And yes, happily ever after, you can make that a reality. You can create your own version of it. Absolutely. And
By loving freely, please.
Yeah.
Not in a controlling way.
Yeah.
We have to put that out there.
but here's the actual answer. The way it's played out in the movies is absolute bullshit. Okay. All right, peace.